Hi, and welcome to what I think will be a devlog. The thing is, the project that you're looking at now, that was supposed to be my side project. I have approximately 2 other projects that I've been thinking about making a video series about. And this project was supposed to be just like a non-serious project. I told myself that I wasn't going to record it, I wasn't going to overthink about code structure. It was supposed to be kind of just a playground for me to fiddle with. But eventually now I've become super excited about it. Because the point of this game was for me to, first of all, I want to learn about scripting, having the ability to attach Lua scripts to different entities, and I also wanted to learn about Steamworks, the multiplayer part. So that's kind of what I'm hoping this game here to eventually become. I want to make a simple tower defense game. That was kind of the original plan. And yeah, like I said, I told myself that I wouldn't overthink about structuring, etc. But that probably lasted about 2 days at most. I started by making a very simple entity component system where I could attach like a self-made physics component or a texture component, and it worked fine. But as I began working more on it, I realized that it's not scalable, right? And it wasn't made to be scalable or performant for that matter. So I came across this very nice article that I will put a link in the description, and from that I think I have a really solid foundation now. I have this kind of scene hierarchy thing here. It's kind of broken, I can't really click on the things I want. But for example, entity number 1, that is the player here. And he has a transform, which all entities need to have. And he also has a physics component, a texture component, a move component. And the move component, it just tells the physics engine where to apply forces to. And an input component, so I can control it. And the script component is pretty much the absolute major reason I'm recording this, because I'm just amazed on how well it's working. It's super fun to play around with. And as you can see, this entity here has 2 children. And this entity is the stone platform here. It's not a cookie, it looks like a cookie, but it is a platform. And when I step on it, it does this kind of glow. It has this glow between the tiles, and also it's kind of difficult to see, but it has a glow on top of the player as well. And if I leave, it stops. And the cool thing about this, it's all controlled here in this Lua script. So what I have is, I have the physics component of the entity. I subscribe to an event, which is on collision enter. So when the player enters the platform, it sets active to true, and vice versa when he exits. And then we also have reference to children of that platform. So here is the platform texture file, and it is divided into 3 parts, which is the kind of top glow that goes above the player, and the glow in between the bricks, and the core or the base of the platform. And in game, these are 3 different entities, where the base platform is the parent and these 2 are the children. So in the script, what we do is we grab a reference to these children, and based on whether the platform is active or not, we just simply control the alpha in the render component or texture component. So all these components that I have now, they are very messy at the moment. I'm doing it in a very iterative process. For example, in the beginning, the transform didn't have any of this. It just had a simple X and a Y position. Because in the beginning, I wasn't planning on having like this child-parent relationship between entities, because I wanted to keep it simple. But when it comes to scripting, it's super duper duper useful, as you can see with the platform, for example. And it's just super useful to have this kind of hierarchy where you can grab child entities from a parent. So when I create this platform here, right now I just create them from scratch, but later of course this will be loaded from a file. So here I create the base component, which has it has a move component. It shouldn't have that, but hey, it can move. Yeah, actually, if I go in here and I do this, and then I run the game again, nothing happens. Oh, there we go. And now you can see it moves to the right, and this move component is the exact same that the player uses. Right, so all of these entities, they get put together in here, and the children, they get parented to the base entity. Now, an entity is just a number. It doesn't know what a parent or a child is. But that's where the transform system comes in. So at the moment I have input system, physics, render, and scripting and transform systems. Basically they iterate through the scene, they grab everything with, in this case, the transform components, and it just manages all the transform related things in here. So the components themselves, they don't really need to keep track on that. The system does that for them. Some of these implementations are not very good, but my goal is to get something to work. Right now I'm really pushing myself to not overthink stuff, and it works, and I'm very happy with it. So with this, thanks to the transform system, I can very easily fetch these entities from just grabbing the transform components and reference the indices of them. And it's just amazing. I love it. The player has a very simple script that I thought that we could play around a little with. Everything we do now is just we grab the... So the player, he is right now the only entity with an input component. And the input component, right now it doesn't do anything really. It doesn't have any data, at least. But the input system, it grabs anything with an input component and a move component. And depending on the input, we set the move component's direction to be the input direction. And in the script, what we do is we fetch this direction. And as long as we're moving, we set the rotation of the player to face towards that angle. And that is what makes the player rotate with the keys. Now I wanted to show a quick example of why I find this so nice. And the reason why I put this effort into scripting is because of flexibility. Because I love using components and systems. But if I want to make a teleportation button, or if I want to make so if the player steps in a certain region, then maybe a sound effect plays and a door opens, you know, like these super specific events, making them in C++ would be just a huge pain. Because imagine if we were to create like let's say the teleportation button, right? If I step on this button or tile, I get teleported. Then I would need to go in, define a new component, call it something like teleport button component, and then I will need to create a system to manage that listens to the collision events, and it would just be a huge mess. But in here, what I can do is I can just very simply connect the building blocks, which are the components, and then I can make the script manage these kind of interactions. And the plan is, of course, as the game progresses, I will use a lot of scripting for the prototyping, but kind of as the game matures and I know specifically like what kind of systems I need, then I will of course put as much as I can into C++. But for now, I just love playing around with this. So what I thought that we would do is I want to make the player able to shoot. And at the moment I have a left mouse clicked event that I can subscribe to. Later, of course, this would not be left mouse clicked. It would be probably like an event called primary action or something along those lines, because I do want gamepad support. But let's just subscribe to this left mouse clicked. And I will attach a function here. So now when we click the mouse, what I want to do is I want to create a projectile. And I do have a projectile defined here, which has a transform, it has a texture, and a physics and a move component. So all I need to do here is I just write instantiate and projectile. So now every time I click, I will create a projectile. It is a cheese right now. It was the only texture I had available. So right now you can see I create more and more projectiles here, but they're all in the same location and they're not really moving. So what we want to do is we want to grab this entity that we create, and first of all we want to set the position of that to be the player's position, like so. And if we run it now, we don't need to recompile either, so it's very quick to work with scripts. So now if we play it, you can see that the cheeses, the projectiles, they get spawned on the player. So now all we need to do is we need to set a move direction. So now I set so the move direction of the projectile will be the same direction that the player faces. And now we have bullets. They don't really collide with anything, they just kind of fly out to infinity, which is not really what we want. So what we can do is here, when we create these bullets, we can also access the collision enter event, and we can connect to that. And this function takes in an argument, which is the other entity. So if I collide with the platform or a player, this other entity will be that player or platform. And we can just say, if we collide with something, then we want to destroy the projectile. But you will see now that it gets destroyed instantly, and that's because, of course, it collides with the player. So what we want to do is we want to check if the other entity's ID is not equals to the player's ID. Then we want to destroy the projectile. Now I don't have any walls or anything in the game, so right now the platform is gonna have to act as a wall. But you see now that the projectile flies, and if I hit the platform, boom, it's destroyed. Oh, yeah, they also collide with each other. But yeah, for rendering, I am using my own engine, which is a separate project that I build into a static library and use here. And I made that one a few weeks ago, and I made this quick demo in that library where you play as a mouse and you have these random nature objects spawn, and if you eat a piece of cheese, you get a little bit fatter. So that was kind of just a test project to get some camera functionality, rendering functionality, sprite sheet animations, and that kind of stuff. And this game is built on top of that. So I'm not going to go into depth about the workings of the rendering library, but if you would like to see more about that, then I would love to show that in a later episode. So I hope you enjoyed this, and my hope is to make these update videos as often as possible. But yeah, thank you for sticking around. Have a good one.